All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 141 of this series that I refuse to kill. Uh, well, you've heard the introduction enough, so I'll just jump right in and have our guest introduce themselves.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. I'm BluMagma, or BluMagma 7 on Twitch. Um, I have been in the speedrunning scene for around 5 years now. Um, High level background, I am a Pokemon speedrunner primarily. Started with Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. That's my game of choice. But I've also branched out a little bit to some other games. Um, I've tried out some more modern stuff like Hollow Knight Celeste, Metroid Dread was a game I ran for a while. And then also some other games. Um, Played Super Mario Land 2 for a few weeks. Um, and several others. Drill Dozer has been one that I've been interested in recently, which is another Game Freak game. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, Minish Cap. Those have all been on my radar recently, but in my heart, I'm a Pokemon speedrunner.
All right. So, 5 years. Where did it all begin?
Yeah, so I got into speedrunning probably back in high school, yeah, probably back in 2017, 2018 is when I kind of learned about speedrunning, um, just through YouTube and Twitch. Um, I watched a lot of TASes in my free time, as well as some of the sort of great Pokemon streamers. Um, the big names like Gunner, or Gunner Maniac, Shiru, um, and Gunner was running a lot of Pokemon Sapphire at the time. That was one of my childhood games, so I watched a lot of him. Yeah, watched a lot of TASes of random games. But back in high school, I didn't have really the flexibility to commit to, it's almost a 2 hour run. Um, and then, so I kept watching, just sort of a viewer. I thought it was really cool. And then once I got to college in 2020, I was like, well, I sort of have a little more control over my own schedule now. So I figured I could actually try to sit down for a couple hours and do a run. So yeah, late 2020, I think I got an actual GameCube. Right here, I got my Game Boy player attachment, which is how I run all my Game Boy games. And then got a Sapphire cartridge. Unfortunately, I got rid of a bunch of my cartridges from when I was a kid. I'm sure I had some valuable ones, but it is what it is. So started learning the run. Um, I found out later that most people do not recommend Ruby and Sapphire as a first run to do, and this was my first speed run ever that I've learned, so I had a lot of learning to do. It was kind of an uphill battle. It took me probably 2 or 3 months before I felt comfortable enough to like start doing runs, which was
Wow.
pretty crazy. Um, it's yeah, for me, I liked it. One of my favorite parts of the speedrunning process now is the learning process, understanding the intricacies of the game, the strategies. Um, RNG manipulation is a huge thing in the Gen 3 Pokemon games, so learning all of those. Um, and then, yeah, probably early 2021, I actually started doing runs. My first run was, I don't even remember at this point. I'm sure I could go back and find the history of what I submitted, but it was something like over 3 hours, I think. Or okay, it was yeah, barely under 3 hours. For my first submitted run. I probably had runs worse than that, of course, when I was starting out, but didn't submit them. Um, and that was pretty much my dedication for the next year or so. Um, yeah, streamed that for a while. Um, Barely missed out on a sub 2 hour run. That was sort of my first initial goal. I got a 2 hours and 33 seconds run, um, around 4 years ago. And then I took a break from Sapphire for a while, went over to Metroid Dread because I played that game casually on the Switch when it came out and wanted to see what that run would be like. That was really fun. Pokemon has a lot of RNG elements to it in the speedrun. So going over to something more execution heavy, less RNG focused was fun. So played Metroid Dread for a while. Got some okay runs on that. I was decently high up on the leaderboard for a while. And then after that, I was like, okay, I got to go back to Pokemon. Went back to Pokemon, got a sub 2 hour finally, got a 159. Um, Took a little break from that because I started investigating any percent. I had been running glitchless because there wasn't really an any percent category for Ruby and Sapphire. Um, did some runs of any percent, which really was thought to be Japanese only at the time. And I'll get more into that later, but because that's a whole thing. But did a run of any percent for a few months on Japanese exclusive, and then went back to glitchless. Got a 158, which I was happy about, and then got a slightly better 158. And then that's my current PB is a 158.23. That was like top 5 at the time, I think. I'm now tied for number 10th. So it's crazy how far that leaderboard has been pushed in the past couple of years.
My main known game, I'm tied for 10th in any percent too. Well, this is
Yeah,
glitchless,
let's
but
go.
tied for 10th. Classic.
Nice. Yeah. The person that tied me, Flame, is a French runner, and he very recently, like a month ago, got a 158.23. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I definitely want to go back and get a 157, maybe a 156 at some point, but it's a grind, and that I think is why I love it and hate it sometimes, is because you can play very well and still get punished by RNG a lot, and there's just not much you can do about it, which makes it exciting because every run is so incredibly different and you have to adapt to so many different situations, which makes Pokemon a very interesting run. But when you start grinding for really good times, it can just feel like you are kind of banging your head against the wall until you get a good outcome.
What's the record
But
at?
yeah, the record was actually pretty recent. It's by Amoeba, who is a very strong runner. He has a 156.29, which is pretty crazy. He was actually on pace for a 155, which has never been done before. The second place is a high 156. And then he lost an entire minute in the Elite Four because he went for. There are some new strats that actually Mockwing developed somewhat recently. You normally don't really use Hydro Pump. So for those that aren't familiar with the route, you use Mudkip for most of the game, and then once you get to Kyogre, you catch the Kyogre with a pretty difficult RNG manipulation, and then Kyogre starts out with Hydro Pump. You use it for like 1 or 2 Pokemon, and then you teach over it and don't really use it anymore. But Mockwing came up with a risky strat where you can actually use Hydro Pump for more of the fights in the Elite Four than you normally would, and it can save like 30-ish seconds, I think, if you hit all your Hydro Pumps. But Hydro Pump is an 80% accurate move, and you're using several of them, so your odds of missing at least one of them are pretty high. So Amoeba, already being on world record pace, actually decided to go for the Hydro Pump strats, which was crazy to me. Because he was already had such a good pace, and then decided to just risk it all to see how far he could push the time, which I gotta respect him for that. But he missed at least 2 or 3 Hydro Pumps. I don't remember how many, but that ended up losing him like a minute. But still got world record by almost 20 seconds, which was pretty crazy. Yeah. Yeah, so the glitchless record has been pushed pretty far now, which is very cool. It also got a pretty significant reroute, An interesting part of Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald is the second, well, quote unquote, second gym leader, Brawly, is not required until later. So you can actually do it in a few different orders. You can fight him as the second, third, or fourth gym leader. And for a long time, we were doing what was called the early Brawly route, where you would fight him as the second gym leader. Um, but that was one of the worst fights in the game in terms of like win rate. It was really, really likely to die. They have high crit rate moves, so you're very likely to get critical hit and just lose. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff
So
that can go wrong. Yeah.
usually in the games, you're supposed to do the leaders in a certain order, right? Because based on like Pokemon levels, does that vary
Yeah.
depending on when you arrive, or is it the same?
Yeah. So in these games, the levels are static, so it does not scale based on how many other badges you have.
Okay,
Um,
so
yeah.
it's technically they have a ideal route in mind.
Yes. Like to get into just like the game mechanics, if you beat Brawly, he gives you the ability to use Flash, which lights up caves in if you're in a cave and it's dark. So you're kind of supposed to fight Brawly so that you can use Flash, and then that'll let you get through the cave that you need to progress so that you can see. But there's nothing that requires you to use Flash. You can just learn the layout of the cave pretty easily and
Mm.
go through it without that. So Brawley doesn't actually give you anything mandatory aside from his badge, and his badge you don't need until you fight your dad, Norman, because he won't fight you until you have 4 other gym badges.
Okay.
So yeah, the levels don't change even if you fight him in a different order. Um, but we were fighting him early for so long because he gave you so much extra experience that it made a lot of the following fights easier because you would evolve sooner, you'd have higher XP or higher level, so you'd do more damage, etc.
So
Um,
his Pokemon
yeah,
had like superior levels then?
yeah, you were pretty underleveled.
Okay.
Yeah, you're pretty underleveled for that fight, and just you didn't have great moves for it either. He's a fighting type gym leader. You are water and ground type, so none of those like it's all neutral hits, but none of them are super effective. So you didn't really have a good way of doing damage exactly.
Mm.
Yeah. So that got rerouted to actually do a late Brawly route where you fight him as the fourth gym leader. And yeah, that has some downsides in the early game because you have less experience, but it also makes the fight free when you do it later, or basically free because you're so over leveled at that point. Because again, his levels don't scale with you.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and so that's what the world record route actually uses. The previous, yeah, none of the previous world records have used the late Brawly route. They've all been the early Brawly route. That's been a pretty big development. In terms of time save, it's actually pretty minor. It I don't know how much time it's quote unquote supposed to save, and a lot of it will depend on RNG and risk reward and things like that. Um, but the big thing is the consistency because getting out of the early game used to be pretty difficult. Um, and so now you can do that a lot more consistently. And yeah, so it's pretty much like a little bit of time save. Maybe it ends up being a wash in the long run. But the consistency is the biggest thing for the reroute. So it became a lot easier to actually get those paces, like those world record paces, to the second half of the game instead of just resetting on the first 30 minutes over and over. Because that happened a lot.
All right. Yeah,
Um,
I played a little bit of Pokemon, but in terms of speedrunning, I'm not that familiar. So,
yeah, it's definitely an interesting routing challenge. I'm sure other RPGs are similar, where you have a whole bunch of different options and different moves and things like that. And it's yeah, it's a lot more than just what is strictly fastest because there is so much risk and probability involved that you have to really be able to weigh those things into the route. Like you could kind of like a hypothetical that you can throw around is like, well, if I go for a critical hit on this fight, I could save like 30 seconds, but what's your chance of a crit? Like it's a 1 in 16. So like are you going to rely on a 1 in 16 chance to save 30 seconds every time and then you reset 15 out of 16 runs? Or are you going to like use an X attack item to increase your attack and then go from there? Or are you going to use a healing item first and then go from there? So like things like that where it's like, oh, you could just go for the 1 in 16 chance to save 30 seconds. Well, okay, but now you're resetting 95% of your runs an hour into the run or something like that. It's a very tricky routing in that regard. But yeah, Glitchless has a really cool history. That's what got me into speedrunning. Um, and I haven't been playing it much recently, but I definitely plan to come back to it at some point.
So, what's the difference between glitchless and any percent?
Yeah, so any percent is where things get pretty crazy. Any percent is kind of like my baby at this point. Um, any percent has a very strange history. There's really only one glitch, only one major glitch in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire and all the Gen 3 games, to be honest. And that's called the mail glitch. There's like those little, you can buy like mail from some of the stores and like you can give them to your Pokemon and write cute little messages in them to send to your friends. They don't really do much in terms of gameplay though. Um, but years ago, it's probably over 15 years ago, like there was the first recorded discovery of the mail glitch. And I don't. There were several people that were involved with that at the time. Some Japanese communities and some other glitch hunting communities. Um, and that was thought to be Japanese exclusive. So the very, without getting too technical, because there's a lot of technical stuff, the high level of the mail glitch is that if you remove a Pokemon's mail, um, in a way that you're not supposed to, the game doesn't like go through the proper checks and like processes to actually clear the memory properly. And so there are a few ways you can do that. One of them is with the move Trick. Trick will swap your Pokemon's held item with the opponent's held item. Um, so that's one way. And then the other way is the move Thief or Covet. They do the same thing, which just if your Pokemon is not holding an item and you use it on another Pokemon, it'll steal their held item. Um, so at first, the only known way was with Trick. Um, you could use Trick on another Pokemon as you were holding a mail, and the game would skip the proper checks of removing that mail from your Pokemon. And when that happens, you can do some crazy stuff. The biggest thing, the only things that were known about way back when it was Japanese exclusive, was um, item duplication. And basically, because the game didn't properly clear that you were holding that piece of mail, what you can do is give the Pokemon a new item and then just keep giving them more mail, and it won't properly like remove the item, and so you'll just keep getting more and more of whatever item you're holding. So you can get like a rare candy, which boosts your level by one. You could just get however many rare candies you want, spam rare candies on your Pokemon, and then you can go to level 100 and basically one shot everything for the rest of the run. And so that was the route for a long time. The first ever run of any percent was by Epic Dude Guy, um, who, yeah, he's contributed a lot to any percent and glitchless. I don't think he's super active in the Pokemon speedrun community anymore, but he's a cool guy. And he got a 152.34 on the Japanese version. And so kind of a strange thing with Pokemon is the Japanese and English versions have separate leaderboards.
Hmm.
They actually use different timing rules as well. So like the English version timing, it actually ends when the credits start, and the Japanese version timings, the timer stops when the credits are over. Um, so kind of, or yeah, when the credits are over. So kind of weird how that happens. Just sort of how the communities ended up. They weren't super united at the start, and so the Japanese community sort of decided on their own timing system, and then so did the English community. But with that, he had a 152.34, and that route was just doing the mail glitch, and then going up to level 100 on Swampert, and then basically sweeping the game with Swampert. Now, for comparison, the Japanese glitchless world record is a 153. So he's saved about 30 seconds compared to the glitchless world record. It was, yeah, so it was a
massive.
yeah, it was a massive time save. Um, it was obviously a lot less RNG heavy because you can outspeed and one shot everything. But yeah, the time save wasn't all that great. And then I did a run in kind of that intermediate period because I was like, well, okay, I'm kind of happy with my glitchless time. Let's see what this any percent thing's all about because I saw that there was one run on the leaderboard. I wanted to see if it could be improved. I got a 152, like a low 152, so saved maybe another 30 seconds off of the record. But again, still less than a minute faster than the glitchless world record. And yeah, I was using basically the exact same route, level 100 Swampert, with some minor optimizations to save a few more seconds. And then yeah, that was it for a while. And we were sort of coming up with me and another Pokemon speedrunner keeping it icy, as well as another Damon. We all three of us were kind of working on some optimizations for the route, and we were discovering a lot of new things. So people had talked about tile corruption for a while. It was sort of known that you could corrupt tiles with the mail glitch, but it wasn't really understood how. And so that was a big discovery for us was we actually figured out the internal, like the technical details of how you could corrupt certain tiles and what they would corrupt to and where the tiles actually were. And that was a big discovery because with tile corruption, you might think you can do like a whole bunch of crazy stuff with that, like skip gyms or skip trainers or whatever. It was very, very limited. You could only corrupt up to 9 tiles at a time, and the location of those tiles was predetermined, so you couldn't change them. It was just each area of the game had a different set of a different location for those tiles. So pretty limited. The main thing that you could do with that is in a couple of areas you could spawn water tiles or even corrupt some tiles that would let you walk on water. And if you've played through kind of the gameplay loop of Pokemon, you start out getting low level encounters, and then usually about halfway through the game you get access to Surf, which lets you, surf around on your Pokemon on the water. And those, because you're farther through the game, the water encounters end up being pretty high level. And so with tile corruption, we could actually walk on water, and the game doesn't check to see if you're surfing. It just checks to see if you're on the water or not. And so we could just run around on the water and get the maximum level you can get is level 35, and we're like level 15 at that point in the game. So you get a huge power bump by getting access to those water encounters early. And that was really, really cool. So I guess another thing I talked about briefly, but RNG manipulation is very powerful in these games. You can RNG manipulate almost anything with varying degrees of difficulty. And so we made an RNG manipulation for a level 35 Tentacool. That was the highest level that we could get. And then we would duplicate more candies, go to level 100 with that, and then we would use the Tentacool or the Tentacruel, I guess, once it evolved, to beat the game. because like level 35 to level 100 is a huge difference compared to level 15 to level 100, like we were doing with the old route. Um, each candy, like each rare candy duplication, took about 7 or 8 seconds to get the candy and use the candy. So, 8 seconds times 20 added up a lot. And so then Damon got the record with that route on the Japanese version with a 150. So 3 minutes faster than the glitchless record. Still not a ton, but it was cool progress. Um, so that was pretty neat. During all of this, I was like, why the heck doesn't this work on English? And I was like trying out random things because we had been investigating random stuff on Japanese. And so I was trying it on English. And all of a sudden it just worked. Like it worked the exact same on the English version that it did on the Japanese version. And that was pretty crazy because most of the active community is on the English version. And so most people weren't really interested on running on Japanese. But then once I discovered it worked on English, we were like, whoa. So that was big because now you had more people, you had more runners that were actually interested and could do routing and actually grind attempts and things like that. And so the ironic part about this is the glitch actually worked on English all along. And I mean, yeah, like I said, it was 15 years ago or something that the original glitch was discovered on Japanese. The the move trick. So yeah, like I said earlier, there were two moves, trick and thief, and both of those could be used to activate the glitch. Um, trick did not work on the English version. They actually patched it for the English version, but they did not patch thief. So um, it turned out that we could have just been using that the whole time. And actually, Epic Dude Guy in his Japanese, like his first ever run, he was using the Thief version, but it was on Japanese. So everyone just assumed, oh, they patched Trick for the English version. They must have patched Thief as well. And it was only when I just happened to try it randomly um, that this actually works on the English version. You just
Never
have to use Thief
assume.
instead of Trick. Yeah, never assume. I
Never.
was like, okay, yeah, never assume that something doesn't work until you've actually tested it. Um, yeah, so that was pretty cool. Um, yeah, it did not have an English version leaderboard until that was discovered. So I was pretty excited when that happened. We got a few very high level runners running that. Um, I ran the English version category for a long time. Um, and that went through a lot of cool adaptations. We were still using the Tentacool strat with rare candy duplication. Um, going to level 100 is good for a lot of reasons. One of them that you might not realize at first is that it actually skips all the experience and
Mm.
experience related animations.
It's
So the
almost
little
like Red
bar doesn't
Bar
fill up.
in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like Gen 3 version of Red Bar. Um, yeah, because you skip all of that, you skip all the level ups, um, which saves a lot of time throughout the run because you're still fighting all the trainers that you normally would. So it's a lot of battles. Um, but we did some routing and we actually figured out it's slightly faster to go to a lower level, um, not go all the way to level 100, which people liked because it was kind of tedious to duplicate 70 candies or whatever. It would take like 5 minutes to get all the candies and use them all, and then you could actually start running the game, which yeah, so that was a little tedious. And so people were like, let's try to lower the candy amount. And the new route went to like level 65-ish, and it was faster by like 30-ish seconds. So not a huge improvement, but it was an improvement, and it made things more interesting. It made things less tedious with the duplication. And because you're lower level, there's a little bit more of RNG involved, which a little bit of RNG actually can make the run a lot more interesting because everything's not just mash A and win the battle. You actually have to kind of adapt and hope for good outcomes and yeah, and so on. And so that was cool. The record with that got down to, so me and Aluo is a French Pokemon runner, and we were battling for the record several times. I actually should go and check the history on this to see how many times we went back and forth. Um, so the first run, I did the first English any percent run with a 155. That was a, yeah, so that was like a minute faster than the current glitchless record. I improved that by 3 minutes. After that, improved it by another minute, so got down to a 151. So, okay, we're making progress. It's 5 minutes faster than glitchless. Um, Shortly after that, Alwo beat the record by 6 seconds. He got another 151. He actually improved that a couple of times and got a 150. I beat that shortly after, got a low 150. He beat that less than a month later, got the first ever sub 150. I beat that 3 days later, got another sub 150. He beat that 7 days later, also improved it again a day later, and then 2 days or so after, no, the literally the next day I got a 148.
Hmm.
So we were battling back and forth. It would always be like I would get a record and then it would stand for like a month and then he'd beat it and then I'd be like, I'd move on to something else because I was like, oh, I got the record, and then he'd beat it and then I'd come back the next day and beat his, and he would get so mad because he'd be grinding it for like weeks and then I'd come back and get it in 2 days. But that was a
Assert
really
your
fun back and
dominance.
forth. Yeah, basically. um, yeah. And then out of nowhere, Warax, who's another French runner, um, who he'd been doing some runs, but he had never had a record in any percent, and he actually got a low 148, like a 148.05, and that stood for like a few months. Um, none of the route improvements really none of the route improvements really happened from that point on. Like that route was pretty much satisfied with. I was still looking for crazy stuff, crazy ideas like using Pelipper instead of Tentacruel, using a Azumarill instead of Tentacruel, trying lower levels, trying higher levels. Like when you have access to as many rare candies as you want, you have so many options, which is good, but also it makes routing really hard because it's like, well, why is level like 70 better than level 71 versus level like 72? And so it's really tricky to get a fully optimized route with that. Um, During this time, I created a couple of bounties. I set up a $500 bounty for what I called trainer skip, because despite all these cool advancements with the mail glitch and finding new uses and all that, um, you still had to fight every mandatory trainer. Like there were no real skips in the run. It was just, okay, you can get a higher level Pokemon, but that was about it. And so I wanted to like skip something, like skip a trainer at least. And so I set up a bounty for that. And I also was working on a category extension, Catch 'em All, which is pretty cool. And at the time, you could only catch like 180 of the Pokemon out of like the 200 some in the Pokédex. So I also set up a bounty for whoever can increase the number of catches through glitches or otherwise. So I set up those bounties. The catch 'em all bounty actually happened very quickly. Um, Me and a few other people collaborated on that. And then the trainer skip bounty was still basically radio silence. Like I was looking for a bunch of stuff, other people were looking for stuff, and nothing really happened. And this was back in 2024 that I created this bounty, and I set the deadline to the end of 2025 for it to expire. And it was pretty late, so it was what, June or July of this year. And I was like, man, I don't think it exists. I don't think anyone's gonna claim this. Um, and then actually, out of nowhere, Metric, who is a prominent Emerald glitch hunter. There's a glitch hunting community called Glitch City, who does a lot of work with Pokemon glitches, and he's in there working on Emerald arbitrary code execution stuff, Fire Red Leaf Green arbitrary code execution stuff. Fire Red Leaf Green is an interesting case, not to get too sidetracked, but that was also a game that did not have any glitches, even on the Japanese version. And when I discovered that mail glitch worked on the English version, um, I uploaded my first world record with this new English version route. Another prominent glitch hunter, Lucky Typhlosion, commented and said, "Oh, it's so cool! Now we have a full set of any percent categories, Gen 1 through 4." And then he replied to himself and was like, "Oh, wait, no, we don't. I forgot about Fire Red Leaf Green." And so he actually, in the next couple of days after that, leaving that comment on my video, he dug into the code of Fire Red Leaf Green because he was looking at the mail glitch, and they had patched Thief and Trick on Emerald and Fire Red Leaf Green. So we're like, oh, it's fully patched on those. And he came up with a super crazy way to actually achieve the same mail glitch, even though those moves had been patched. And I'll probably butcher the exact details, but it's like you get a berry on one of your Pokemon, and then you get that Pokemon to eat the berry, and then the game like doesn't properly keep track of what Pokemon ate the berry, and then you can switch out and then knock off the Pokemon that was in that same slot that was eating the berry, and then you can use recycle. They call it like mail composting,
Hmm.
which I think is a cool name because you're like recycling the mail and it's like a berry, and so it's a
Yeah,
thematically appropriate
yeah,
name.
that's where my mind went for sure.
Yeah. So that was cool, and then Fire Leaf Green out of nowhere got a um, any percent glitched category. That was so that was really exciting. People had been wanting that for a while. That's like a 118 now, the world record, by Chippy. So pretty cool.
Oh,
Um,
how much did that save? Okay.
that saved 40-ish minutes.
Holy
Yeah,
shit.
a little
Okay.
over 40 minutes. So pretty significant. Um,
Finally, actually massive. I've been waiting.
yes, actually massive. And so I was feeling a little jealous. Like I'm
Mhm.
over here on Ruby and Sapphire, and we're saving like less than 10 minutes. Yeah, so like with that route, the Sapphire any percent record went down to a 148, and the record was a 156 in glitchless. So we're still saving like 8 minutes, and it's like peanuts compared to the Fire Leaf Green. So I'm like, why can't someone find this? Um, yeah, and so Metric and the Glitch City server in general is more focused on casual glitches, casual playthroughs, finding glitches that can work for that.
Yeah.
Um, and so they're generally not looking at RNG manipulation too much because it's a little bit inaccessible for casual players. Um, there's a lot that you have to kind of learn about the game and practice before you can really do your own RNG manipulation. So that wasn't a big thing. But he caught word of the bounty. I posted the video about the bounty there. And he actually found a proof of concept where you could use the mail glitch to perform arbitrary code execution
Hmm.
in Ruby and Sapphire, which was wild because I mean, we, I mean, arbitrary code execution, of course, is massive, massive.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the big
yeah,
things in like the Game Boy games.
yeah, definitely, and that's what Fire Leaf Green, the mail glitch there. The mail glitch works slightly differently on each version of the game for some reason, but in Fire Leaf Green, it enabled arbitrary code execution. In Emerald, they already had a different version of arbitrary code execution, so it was just Sapphire that was left
Interesting.
without it. And so then Metric found a version where you would get, I think it required 5 or 6 gym badges. You had to go to the Safari Zone and like catch a Pikachu. Um, and then evolve it with a Thunderstone. And I don't even remember the specifics of how that worked, but you could do a credits warp with arbitrary code execution through that. I don't think anyone ever did that route because I would be curious to see now going back like how fast would that route have actually been because it did require a lot of setup and getting to that point in the game takes like an hour 10, an hour 20 minutes. So I'd be curious to see how much faster that would even be than the
Another
non-ace
30
route.
seconds.
Another 30 seconds saved for the any percent community. Um, Fortunately, he pretty quickly discovered a two badge route, which was really, really fast.
Jeez.
So that was really cool. That required that that had a really interesting route. It required winning a contest. Like I don't know if you ever tried out the contests mini games in the Pokemon games. They had like contest halls scattered throughout the map. Um, and they were like kind of like battles, but not really. Like you had different each of your moves, like normally you can look at them in your summary screen and they'll have like the power and the type and whatever. But if you scrolled again, they also have like a contest page and it's like each of your moves could be cool or cute or smart or whatever, like all these different contest categories.
Hmm.
Um, and you needed to, for this, basically this two badge route, you had to win a contest with your starter. So you're pretty limited on what options you had to actually win the contest, and they're very RNG heavy. The contests, and you had to win for the glitch to work. For some reason, you had to win because it only saves your data. I think if you win, and so if you lost, it wouldn't actually accomplish what you needed it to. And the contests take forever. Like if you failed the contest the first time, if you got unlucky, it would take like 5 or 6 minutes at least to do another contest. So it was basically just like if you don't win the contest, you reset. Um, yeah, but it was a fun route as that as that was being developed. Um, and then you went and you caught a Spinda after that, and then Um, with that, you could get like a glitched Pokédex entry, and then that glitched Pokédex entry could be used to perform arbitrary code execution. And then, yeah, people smarter than me, including Metric, would write. I don't know if you've ever seen a glitched Pokemon run, or specifically in Gen 3. You can like change the name of your boxes, like in your PC where you store
Mm.
your Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like they're normally box one, box two, box three. And a very common way to perform ace in these games is to change the names of the boxes because you've got a lot of open space to work with there. Like you can write in different instructions based on which characters you use. And so people that are more knowledgeable in like assembly and the way that these games work at a really low level wrote some box names and then we were able to do runs with that. And people got some really good times with that. I got a. Oh wait, was this even the? No, this was a different route. Yeah, we had so many routes that were developing over the like past. Yeah, this was like 3 months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, and so much has changed in the past 3 or 4 months. It's really wild. Um, did someone get? I think maybe Mockwing got a sub 1 hour with that route. It's I don't even remember because it was all happening so fast, all these different route changes. But yeah, people were like pushing for sub 1 hour with that route. So that's a big difference. Now you're saving almost an hour off of glitchless. Now I'm like, oh, okay, now we're breaking the game. This is what I wanted from the start. So that was really cool. Um, and then, yeah, what happened after that? So that was the contest route. Um, I had a write up about this. I could probably find it. Um, but yeah, that was the contest route. It was cool. It was really fast. Um, but the contest aspect was kind of brutal. And then they found another method of basically the same thing, but skipping the contest entirely. um, which was huge. So yeah, no more RNG with the contest. It was a little sad because you never see those in speedruns, but um, yeah, it was cool to see the contest, but so it was a little sad to see it go, but it saves so much time. And so with that, the route was pretty much the same, but just skipping the contest, and that was really fast. Was that the first route that got sub 1 hour? I don't remember, but anyways, that was it for a while, and it was yeah. All you had to do was manipulate your trainer ID, which we were doing anyways, just another RNG manipulation. And then with that, we were still stuck with the 2 badge route. And that was good, but getting to the second badge, you had to do a lot of extra fights. You had to fight Rival 2, you had to fight Watson, you had to fight the Museum Grunts, and yeah, I believe the first sub 1 was with the contest skip route, which was really cool. Now at this point, we've saved like over an hour from glitchless. And yeah, that was where the 2 badge route basically stood. There were some small optimizations made to that route, but before too long, what we realized was with the mail glitch, something that we're actually taking advantage of is name corruption. So the main way that this mail glitch was actually able to be used for Ace was a really creative usage of getting a glitch mail item into your mailbox and then getting a certain value that would basically print out a ton of like blank characters, and like the text box would scroll for like 3 minutes. And so the text box got so long that it would start overwriting like your save data. And so you would it would revert your player gender, which was fun. So normally you run as May, the girl in those games, and by doing this name corruption glitch, it also corrupted your gender. So you switched from May to Brendan in the middle of the run, which was pretty cool. It corrupted your trainer ID.
Nice to see
Um,
Pokemon with some trans representation.
exactly.
We
Let's
love to see
go
it.
trans percent in Pokemon. Finally. Um, so that was really cool. Yeah, I liked that aspect of it. Um, just yeah, the visual effects and the fun stuff with yeah, corrupting your gender and corrupting your trainer ID and stuff. But the other thing was it also corrupted your player name, and your player name gets printed out in a few different places, including when you try to catch a Pokemon. And when your player name is so long, it starts overriding other things. And so if you enter a battle and you try to catch a Pokemon, it will actually corrupt the type of battle that you're in. What this means is normally you can't catch a trainer's Pokemon, right? Because you throw a ball at it and it says you can't do that. That's a trainer. But with a long name, with the name corruption, you could actually catch a trainer's Pokemon. Um, which sounds it kind of just sounds funny. It doesn't sound useful, but we had done a bunch of work for Catch 'em All because this was actually a known glitch that you could only do in post game. But now with name corruption, you could do it very early. You could actually do it after the first badge. And so, with some really, really precise, basically, you had to get the math to line up exactly so that when you caught the trainer's Pokemon, it usually corrupts into another Pokemon, but the game has checks around accidentally corrupting Pokemon, and it'll turn them into a bad egg, which is like their game's kind of like their error check to make sure that things aren't breaking too much. But if you set things up perfectly with frame perfect RNG manipulation, you can actually get them to corrupt without triggering that error, and turning it into a bad egg. And so you could get a glitch Pokemon in your party. Glitch Pokemon are super powerful for a variety of reasons, but certain glitch Pokemon can just be used to trigger Ace immediately.
Hmm.
So that was the first ever 1 badge route, was the trainer steal route. We got our name corruption, went to a trainer, stole his Pokemon, and then use that to do ace. And that was the first ever sub 50, I believe. So at this point, we're well past an hour of time save compared to glitchless, which was really cool. But that route kind of sucked because the RNG manipulation for the trainer steal was frame perfect. You had to wait like 2 or 3 minutes to hit the right frame. So if you missed the frame, you had to wait another 2 or 3 minutes. The other thing was you couldn't know for sure if you hit the frame until you actually caught the Pokemon. And to get all of the math to line up correctly, to get the right glitch Pokemon, you had to stall like 30 turns in battle, and you had to make the trainer's Machop use a very specific amount of each of its moves. So a lot of the routing was like, how do we get it to use a certain amount of moves every time? So we actually caught like 2 Sableyes because Sableye is a ghost type, and so it won't use any fighting type or normal type moves against it. So that we could consistently get a certain move by just switching between Sableyes. And we also used Slackoth for a while because it had Encore, which will make the Pokemon repeat its move. And so that took a while. That took like 5 minutes. And so if you did all of that and then caught the Pokemon and then you realized that you hit the wrong frame, you'd have to do all of that again. So it was really reliant on getting first try. But yeah, people were doing that. I was doing runs of that. I got a pretty good run with a first try trainer steal manip, and got a 48.56 with that. And so that was really good. Or yeah, that was a really cool PB because it was the first sub 50 with trainer steal, first try. Yeah, and then there was another runner who I don't know if he had run any Pokemon games before this actually. I'm gonna check. No, I think yeah, Pokemon Sapphire or no, he had run Fire Leaf Green at one point. He ran Fire Leaf Green any percent when that was discovered. But not really known as a Pokemon runner. And then out of nowhere started doing a lot of runs of the new Trainer Steel route with with Ruby Sapphire any percent doing the Trainer Steel route, got pretty good times. Definitely had a sub 1 at some point. Forget what his PB ended up being at that point. But yeah, got a lot of good runs with that. So we had a few people trying that Trainer Steel route. It was very tough though. It was very tough and pretty brutal if you missed the frame. It's 60 FPS as well, so there was a lot there that could go wrong. Then what was really cool, and this was like storybook moment for me, it was Dune Wacky was the new runner that was doing runs of this. And normally we RNG manipulate our starter. For this run we use Trico for a few different reasons. It's just because he's good for beating the first gym. When normally use Mudkip for glitchless, but the optimal way to do it is to hit a frame perfect RNG manipulation for your Trico, because you can get good stats, good nature, things like that. It wasn't required though, and so Dune Wacky was doing runs without the RNG manip on the Trico, and so with the same manipulated Trico, it's always going to have like the same internal data basically. But without an RNG manip, you're gonna get a different Trico every time, and it's gonna have different data. And so what actually happened was, Dune Wacky was on like I don't know if it was PB pace or not, I forget, but he got the trainer steal set up, and then he went and tried to trigger the arbitrary code execution, and his game crashed instead. And we had never seen this before, and we were like, what happened? And then we sent this to Metric, who was like kind of understood the technical details of all of this. And he was like, oh, actually, we can use this to skip the trainer steal entirely. And so this was like, someone would have to remind me of the exact odds, but it was like a 1 or 2% chance of this crash happening with a random Trico. And so it just so happened that Dune Wacky happened to have a Trico that would cause this crash. And if that never happened, I don't know if we ever would have discovered that. Um, but now all we had to do was get a slightly different Trico that had some slightly different data, and then we could actually just use that Trico with our name corruption and just trigger arbitrary code execution immediately. So we could skip the trainer steal entirely. We also didn't have to catch any extra Pokemon to like stall for them using moves or anything. You could just get the mail glitch and then win, like just warp to the credits immediately. And yeah, so that was just like a miracle that, sorry for his run. He sacrificed his run to find this new glitch for us. And so that brought the time down from the 48 minutes to the first runs with that were like 30-ish minutes, like 35 minutes. So huge improvement and so much easier. Um, oh yeah, in chat, 1.6% chance for that crash to happen with a random Trico. And he had only done a few runs, so it was really crazy that that happened so quickly. Um, yeah, and that brings us to now. That was a long spiel about everything that's happened, but now we're here. That saves a lot of time because yeah, you don't have to do any of the trainer stealing stuff. You don't really even have to corrupt your name anymore. It basically just does the credits warp as you're corrupting your name, and so it skips that part. And so yeah, that saved a tremendous amount of time. The record is now a 27:58. So this is now the fastest Gen 3 run by far. Emerald takes a little over an hour. Fire Red Leaf Green take a little over an hour. And now we are under the 30-minute mark in Ruby and Sapphire. Yeah, so people were trying out this new route. I got a low 29, and then a few days later, Chippy, who's the Fire Red Leaf Green world any percent record holder, he was doing runs, and it was so funny because during this run, he was like, "No, I don't think a sub 28 is possible," and then he got a sub 28 in that run, um, which was amazing. The run doesn't have a ton of RNG, but there's still some things that are kind of hard to avoid, like random encounters in the grass. He only got one random encounter throughout his entire run, which is really crazy. He got really good RNG on a lot of the fights as well. And so, yeah, this was a crazy run. So I don't think anyone's even gotten a 28-minute yet. I had a low 29-minute, and then he just skipped 28 and went straight to a 27-minute, which is pretty ridiculous. Yeah, so that's the run now. It's so much easier to learn and execute compared to where we were a year ago or even 3 months ago. There's only 2 RNG manipulations that are mandatory in the run now. They are frame perfect, but you can try them like as many times as you want fairly quickly. So it's not anything like the old routes where you had to like wait 5 minutes to try again or whatever. Like you can just try, you can see, oh, I was a frame earlier, a frame late, and then you just try again. And those are both at the very beginning of the run too. So it's not super reset heavy or anything like once you get far into the run. Then yeah, once you do that, none of the battles are super hard to learn. If you want to go for really fast times, you can learn some more of the advanced strats for the battles. Like the battle manip is something that I worked on, which is pretty cool, and that's why we use Trico. But you don't have to use Trico. You can really use any starter that you want if you just kind of want to do this run casually. Yeah, you just have to learn those 2 RNG manips. Once you get them, you are good to do the rest of the run. You just go through, you do the glitch, and the glitch is so easy to perform. You literally just click the move Thief and use it on your opponent or on your teammate, I guess, in this case. and then you just go and you warp to the credits after you type in the box names. Um, yeah, so it's really fast. It's really straightforward to learn now. So this is kind of like my shameless plug to try out the run if you like Pokemon and you're interested in glitches and kind of how broken the games can be. Try it out. My girlfriend Blue Jay is getting into speed running, and I taught her this run, and her first run was in under an hour.
Hmm.
So and she had never done a run before of really any Pokemon game, so it's very quick to pick up. There's good resources on how to do it. Um, yeah, and it's just cool to see how fast the game can be beaten. Yeah, and there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with it post game too. Like if you just want to experiment with some of the glitches, you can do that credits warp or whatever, and then you can mess around with the fun stuff. You can spawn clones of yourself. You can basically walk through walls. You can do all sorts of really cool stuff with this one glitch that, way back when it was discovered, it saved what 30 seconds on glitchless, and now it's saving an hour and a half, which is pretty cool in my opinion. So that's been kind of my goal, my pet project for the past year or so has been, how can we improve any percent? What can we do with this? Can people smarter than me figure out how to do arbitrary code execution, which apparently they can? Um, yeah, and so that's kind of a long history, but there's
Hmm.
been a lot that's happened, and that's kind of where we are now.
I was gonna say, I think that answers my question. What's the difference between glitchless and any percent that I asked like 40 minutes ago?
Yeah. Sorry for the long-winded
I mean,
explanation, but
it is genuinely
eh,
fascinating. Um, have
yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
any speedrun content creators take advantage of this yet? Because
Yeah, actually. And
okay,
that's something I wanted to talk about as the kind of as a higher level topic.
yeah,
Um, there is a YouTuber and runner, um, the Waffle Man. He's at the Waffle Man 1 on YouTube. Um, he has made a bunch of cool YouTube shorts about this. I think he's still working on some new ones for this route. Pulse Effects is a very big Pokemon speedrun YouTuber.
yeah,
Um, he, I'm pretty sure he's working on a video for this. I don't
oh,
think
very
it's
good.
out yet. Um, yeah, he made one a year or two ago, whenever the first like English mail glitch was discovered.
But so
That was a
much has
really cool
happened.
video, and so much has happened since then. Yeah.
Hey, we got the early
Um,
access live right here.
yeah, true. But yeah, like that's a interesting part of the speedrunning community, right? Is the content creators behind it. And
Yeah, and
I think
I
that
love that
they,
because
yeah,
stories like these, like I listen to someone that doesn't know Pokemon much, and I'm just like, holy shit.
yeah,
Obviously, I have a deep
yeah,
appreciation for all things speedrun, so that helps a little. But you know,
yeah,
I'm sure there are many others like me that could be reached by more famous people that could explain it
Y-
better than I
yeah,
could or
absolutely,
anyone. So I don't know.
yeah. Um,
I
yeah,
mean,
and that's kind of like the question that I ask myself is like, people are always like, "Oh, you should make a video about this," like when I'm talking about it during runs on stream, or like, "Oh, you should totally make YouTube shorts of this," or whatever. Um, and it's interesting because I think it would be fun to like kind of be be one of the runners and one of the content creators at the same time. But it's always tricky, right? Like, I mean, people like Pulse Effects and Waffle Man, like they know their stuff. They know how to make cool thumbnails. They know how to make cool videos and narration and pacing and all these things.
and
Whereas I don't know any of that stuff. I could maybe figure it out, but
yeah,
um, yeah,
speedrunning is hard work. Content creation is
yeah,
hard work.
yeah,
You double the hard work.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No,
Yeah, and
I
then so it's
understand
like,
that.
and there's only so much time in the day. Like, oh, am I gonna become a content creator? And then like I can't do runs while I'm making videos, and vice
Hmm.
versa. And so, um,
Hard
Yeah,
balancing
so I've
act.
thought about it a lot. Yeah, it definitely is. There are definitely times where I'm like, oh, I should totally make videos about this, just do like a deep dive. And I have done that, but it's sort of been like this podcast where I'm kind of just explaining everything from start to finish, almost train
Oh,
of
like right
thought,
now.
not much structure to it. Exactly. Just like right now.
Perfect. Perfect.
Uh, um, yeah, but that's like it's not near as consumable or understandable for people that yeah, maybe aren't as familiar with Pokemon or just don't have as much time to watch me ramble
Yes.
for an hour.
Yes.
Yeah.
YouTube content has many more views than these podcast episodes, so I can agree
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But
um,
the diehard
yeah.
fans, they know where to
The
come.
diehard
Yeah,
fans.
they know where to
Exactly.
find
Yeah, if
all
you
the
want
information.
I made this was before arbitrary code execution was discovered, but I made a video like a year ago um just talking about all the different things you could do with the mail glitch, and that was just an hour long of me talking and showing stuff in game. So yeah, if you like or if you just want something to fall asleep to and you're interested in that stuff, I have that video, but um yeah, it's like if you're not super familiar with Pokemon, I tried my best to give background, but it's so hard to know like what do you include, what do you not include. Um yeah.
Well, I mean, sounds interesting. I mean, obviously, I've never seen any of this, so it'd be nice to have the visual aspect.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I'll have to take a
Yeah.
look.
Yeah. And now I mean the runs themselves are pretty short, so you can honestly just watch one of the runs,
True.
which is cool. Um yeah, I mean less than 30 minutes now. But I am pretty excited for yeah, for the Pulse Effects video when that eventually comes out. And yeah, Waffle Man making some YouTube shorts. The short form content is always cool too. Seems like that's definitely becoming the meta nowadays for a
Yeah,
lot of things.
yeah. I'll
Yeah.
definitely be the old man wanting my long form content, but
Yeah, true.
nothing wrong with
Yeah, I
shorts
feel
either.
that. Exactly.
I've definitely
Gotta,
dabbled a little bit myself, but
yeah. Yeah, I have too. I made a couple YouTube shorts several years ago, or someone else made them for me when I was
hmm.
running glitchless, and it's like, man, I'm getting like 1,000 views on these for a 5 second video. Like this is crazy. Whereas I upload an hour long deep dive into mail glitch and it gets less views than that.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
yeah, so
yeah.
it's
The only problem
interesting.
with that is like shorts views don't really amount to anything useful.
Yeah,
That's just how it is, which doesn't
yeah,
matter. But I mean, it's just a
right.
truth to it.
Yeah, like in terms of like growing the channel and
Yeah,
like monetization and things like that. Yeah,
like
definitely.
what you need, like if you want to earn money through YouTube, you need like 4,000 watch hours, or like what was it, like 15 million shorts views in a month. It's like, yep, I'll get
Oh my
right on
gosh.
that, chief.
That's crazy.
Tell
Yeah.
me which one sounds easier. Uh,
Yeah. I think yeah, when I was younger, I had a monetized channel because I think it was only like 100 subscribers or something back then that they required,
I
and now it's like a
wish.
thousand, and they have like yeah watch time requirements.
Yeah,
I'm
I've had
like,
1,000 for years, but I've never been anywhere close to the hours, and I have a podcast.
yeah, yeah,
Shit's
yeah. I
hard.
didn't even think about that. Yeah, because those that requirement's probably the hard part now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no,
that's true.
4,000 in a year, 4,000 hours.
Dang,
That is
that's a
hard.
lot. Yeah,
Now, granted, I run like 10-minute long runs, so that doesn't help. But yeah,
yeah,
yeah, the
true.
podcast,
Yeah.
that's few hours each week. But yeah, not easy. Moral
Yeah.
to the story, not easy.
Yeah, not easy to be a content creator, not easy to be a speedrunner. Both of them are very valuable though for the community, in my opinion.
You do it for
It's
the
good
love
that
of
we
the
have
sport.
exactly. Yep. Um, but yeah, I was really excited when Pulse Effects released that first video a year or two ago when the first mail glitch was discovered on English. That was really fun just to see, like, I mean, just reading through the comments is always wholesome. Like, oh, I don't know much about Pokemon, but this was so cool. Or like, whoa, this is really interesting. Um, yeah, so that really made me appreciate like the content creator side of this area or this
Mm.
community. Yeah.
Man, I know I and a lot of others wouldn't even be here without the content creators because that was my introduction.
Yeah, definitely.
So, it cool. Also, a good conclusion statement. It's cool. Um,
It's cool.
you heard it here first. So, we Pokemoned out. Is that all the Pokemon history?
Um, is it? It probably is, I think. Um, yeah, well, yeah, how long do you normally like these to run? I can always talk about plenty of stuff. There's always more things to talk about.
I mean,
Um,
I don't care how long they last, but I mean, you were saying you've done a lot of other stuff besides Pokemon, so you can go into however much detail you want on some of the other projects.
yeah. Oh, I did bring up Catch 'em All during
Oh
my
yeah.
spiel earlier. Catch 'em All is fun. I think I'm the only person that's completed a run in Ruby Sapphire. Um, but that was another form of the bounty, or another
Yeah.
half of the bounty was so yeah, $500 for the trainer skip that went to metric, and then $500 for the catch 'em all bounty. That one is more tricky because the it's always hard to define like what counts as completing the bounty in terms of actually like proving it was possible. I was technically the first person to do it, but I'm not going to claim my own bounty. But then in terms of the people that actually set it up, there were like 3 people that all had contributions. So what I'll probably do is just give 500 to each of them because I want to give back to the community as much as I can. Um, and so yeah, now that the bounty deadline is coming up, I'm going to be setting that up with the 3 of them.
Hmm.
Because it is a collaborative effort. And so doing a bounty for things like that, now I realize is kind of tricky because there is
Oh yeah.
often a lot of collaboration. So it's like, well, do you make people just split it 50-50 or do you divide it up by various things? Most bounties in the speedrunning scene are like, oh, beat the world record or get a certain time or
Yeah.
whatever. Those are a lot easier, obviously, to determine. But I'm still glad that I did it. And I'm, yeah, happy to pay out more just to give back to all the people that helped with it. Um, yeah, so all that to say, Catch 'em All is a fun category. It's long. It's like almost 7 hours,
Oh my
even
god.
with glitches. Um, the glitchless category, I don't think anyone's done it in Ruby Sapphire, but in Emerald, it's like a 20-hour run or something ridiculous. But male glitch is very nice for catch 'em all because you're like doing all these evolutions and stuff, right? Like some of these Pokemon, you gotta level up to like level 40 or 50 to evolve. So getting as many rare candies as you want is really powerful for that. Um, but you couldn't really get new Pokemon, or you couldn't really get any like extra Pokemon like with these glitches. There was one that you could get, or the normal amount that you're supposed to be able to catch is 178, like on a single cartridge, no trading with other people um
Yeah, because
or anything like
there's
that. Yeah.
exclusives to each version and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So on I believe Sapphire was actually you can get 178 on Sapphire and 177 on Ruby because in Sapphire you could get a Moonstone from a Lunatone, which is a version exclusive, and that Moonstone you actually needed because there are 2 Pokemon that need Moonstones to evolve. So kind of interesting how you can catch more depending on the version that you play. Um, and then there was one glitch, the Lottie glitch, and this was post game only because the Latios/Latios only appears once you've beaten the game or beaten the Elite Four for the first time. The the Latias is like kind of weird. It basically like goes around to random places in the map, and if you're lucky, it'll like show up and you can catch it. But it's actually bugged in this game. Usually, when you start a wild battle or any battle, like the game normally stores the Pokemon's data, like the Pokemon information of the trainer that you're fighting or the wild Pokemon that you're fighting. And it actually doesn't clear that information until you start a new battle or until you save and reset. But the Latias encounter is bugged, and so it actually does not clear the enemy Pokemon information when you get that encounter. So what you can do is fight a trainer that has, say, 3 or 4 Pokemon, and then go and find the Latias or Latios, and it'll overwrite the first Pokemon, but then it doesn't clear out the rest of the data. So if you then knock out that Latias, it'll send out, even though you're in a wild battle, it'll send out the trainer's second Pokemon because it never cleared the data. Um, and so then you could actually catch a trainer's Pokemon with that glitch.
Hmm.
And that was used to catch a Torchic from the battle tower. And then you could catch the Torchic, evolve it to Combuskin and Blaziken. And so in that way, you could actually get 2 sets of starters in the run, which is cool. You have to sacrifice the Latias to do it, but that brought the total up from 178 to 180, which is cool. It's not the complete Pokédex, but it's cool that there was like a glitch that you could do to get another starter. Yeah, and so that's where that kind of left off. There, my record was a 644 with that, the 180 catches, and so that's what the bounty was for: is can you get past 180? And then what people realized, or what people helped me figure out, was that Latias glitch. Now we know, like, it all comes back together in the end, or it all comes back around to any percent. But when you steal a trainer's Pokemon, like I said, there's super specific setups you can do to make sure that it corrupts into a glitch Pokemon instead of triggering that error handler and turning it into an egg. So you can actually get glitch Pokemon, or if you're even more precise with your setup, you can get it to corrupt to an actual like normal Pokemon. Like say you're playing Pokemon Sapphire, you could actually corrupt a trainer's Pokemon into a Groudon and catch that Groudon, which is pretty cool. You could even turn it into an egg that hatches into a Groudon. And that's all possible through the Lottie glitch, which at first, yeah, we thought you could only catch like one trainer's Pokemon, but you can kind of use that, catch a glitch Pokemon with that setup, and then that glitch Pokemon will actually enable you to catch more trainers Pokemon. And with that, you can theoretically complete the Pokédex, which is pretty cool.
Hmm.
I have not done a run of that yet. It requires a ton of like routing and setup. Anytime you're doing one of those trainer steel setups, you're gonna do a frame perfect RNG manipulation. And if you're catching, 30 extra Pokemon to fill the Pokédex, you're gonna do 30 frame perfect RNG manipulations throughout the run. So it's a lot of work. It's on the back burner for me, but I think it'll be cool. And maybe also incorporating some of the new stuff that we found with arbitrary code execution is generally banned for categories like this because you could do anything. You could just set the Pokédex to complete and then
Yeah.
you'd be done. It'd be like the same as any percent. But there are other non-ace uses of the mail glitch that have been discovered that might make this category even more interesting and hopefully a little bit faster than 7 hours. So that's in progress. I think that'll be something interesting to watch out for.
Other games have catch 'em all categories, don't they?
Yeah. And they are long.
Mm.
Well, depending on the game. Red and blue has a pretty cool catch 'em all category. I would definitely check that out if you're interested, and it's pretty quick too. Yeah, the mainline catch 'em all category is actually like on the main boards, and it's an hour and a half, which
Wow.
is pretty wild. And there's a lot of restrictions on it too, even because yeah, red and blue are so broken that you could fill your Pokédex basically instantly if you set it up. So there's restrictions on what glitches you can and can't do.
Hmm.
But the route is pretty cool. Even with these restrictions, yeah, you can get a pretty good time, and yeah, it's still very, very glitchy and pretty fun to watch. But then there are other games like, oh, what is like? I wonder what Platinum Catch 'em All is like. I'm gonna check. It's probably painful.
So they're just out of curiosity, are there games that like don't have some sort of glitch that can, grab a Pokemon not from your version? So do you have to like
Yeah.
use both versions for these runs?
So, yeah, that's a good question. The general way that they define it is they call it all obtainable Pokemon is kind of
Ah,
like the
okay.
more modern version.
I see.
Most of the old games would just call it catch 'em all and it'd just be like catch as many as you can. Um, but Let's Go Pikachu Eevee is a modern example of that. They have, where is it? All obtainable Pokemon, yeah, is what it's called. And
Gotta catch
that
most of them.
is gotta catch most of them,
I
yeah. Gotta
see. I
catch
see.
as many as you can without trading.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Okay.
yeah. That's actually pretty short. That's a 5-hour run, which is surprising. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
I
So
can see
not
why
all
that'd
of
be a
them
little
are true
confusing.
catch 'em all.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And that's kind of why I set up the bounty is because I was like, well, we're calling this catch 'em all, but it's not really catch 'em all.
Mm.
It's just
Okay.
it's all obtainable technically, but we just call it catch 'em all because that's what the other Gen 3 games had used
But now.
as their terminology. But now we actually can catch them all, and that's why I'm excited. Um, yeah, and people have made Gibraltar as a prominent tasser in the community. He made a catch 'em all tass, and he actually took advantage of the fact that you can do cross emulator trading now. And so he
Oh.
tasked like
Okay.
2 or 3 different games simultaneously that would trade with each other between emulators uh, in the task. And so he had to
Interesting.
complete the Pokédex on both games simultaneously. That's a pretty cool watch.
Yeah,
Um,
I've never heard of
yeah,
that feature.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Fascinating.
Um, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Hmm.
But yeah, there's there's kind of room for that though. Like in Let's Go Pikachu Eevee, you have oh, it's called Diploma, I think. And it actually is like a co-op run. And you have to, yeah, like you submit it with another person, you're both playing, and you're trading back and forth with each other to actually complete the diploma, which is like complete the Pokédex.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So I think that that's cool. It's obviously a lot harder to do that with the old games because
Yeah.
you would need to be in person or I guess play on emulator. You could, yeah, I guess nowadays you could do that. Although I don't know if that's supported like over the internet. You'd maybe have to set up some weird network thing. I don't know. But that's kind of why it doesn't exist in the older games is because what you're gonna get together with another speedrunner in person and do like a 8-hour catch 'em
Pull
all
out the link
run where you're
cable.
trading with the link cable. Yeah, exactly. That would be pretty cool, to be honest. It would be pretty cool if somebody did that, but that's kind of why it's not
Hmm.
super relevant. But on the Switch, obviously, you can just trade with people super easily.
Hmm.
So
All right.
yeah, that's where catch 'em all is at now. Hopefully, we do a full catch 'em all pretty soon.
And you said no
I'm
one's done full catch 'em all RTA.
correct. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
But it's possible. So someday.
It's possible. It's definitely possible. I've been working on it. I'm like
Hmm.
halfway done with the route, I think. But now it's like all this new stuff showed up and I'm like, okay, well now we got to incorporate this into it.
Hmm.
So
Well, I know it's still
it's
developing, but
coming.
do you have an estimate of how long it would potentially take?
Oh, I did have an estimate somewhere. True catch 'em all. Yeah, I'm calling it True Catch 'em all for now. That's my working name for it. I think my estimate was, yeah, because with this you were able to you're able to catch Pokemon that you would normally have to spend like a bunch of candies for. So even though you're catching like 30 more Pokemon, I think it would still save a lot of time. rough estimate was that it could go down to under 6 hours, but I'm not 100% sure about that. It might be shorter now with all the new stuff, though. I haven't really looked into that. There's so much crazy new stuff that has sort of been unexplored because arbitrary code execution is like the holy grail. So we've just been investigating that for any percent. But I've also been working on an any percent no ace route, which is a work in progress, but it's kind of fun because you get to do all the crazy stuff that you otherwise just do a credits warp and skip all the crazy stuff. But any percent no ace will be pretty cool. You get to like walk through walls. You get to defeat the Elite Four by throwing Pokeballs at them, which is fun. So that's going to be an interesting route. I don't know how fast that'll be. My hope is that it can be like between an hour and 90 minutes, but that's still a work in progress as well. Because, like I said, there's a lot of stuff that's being figured out with all the new glitches. But yeah, I think that's all the stuff I've been working on for Pokemon. I'm working on some. Oh, are you familiar with like in Ruby and Sapphire and Emerald? There's like the Wally cutscene where it's like he encounters a Ralts and he like kind of does the tutorial to teach you how to do the battle.
Yeah. Gen 3, I know nothing about Gen 3.
Gotcha. Okay, so there's basically the catching tutorial where it's like it plays a cutscene and he like damages the wild Pokemon and then he catches him. So this is a common thing in TASes, but it's like a 1 in 20,000 chance or something that the that Wally, like the NPC, can knock out the Pokemon in the cutscene, and it'll just end the catching tutorial early, so he won't even like catch the Pokemon. Super super rare, used in TASes a lot, and recently Goddess Maria, who is a TASer, she developed sort of an RTA viable method for this. And so I've been working on that a lot, making some improvements to make it even more RTA viable. That's been fun. So I've hit that a few times on console RTA. It can save like 15, 20 seconds doing it RTA because it's a little slower with the RTA setup. But that's pretty cool. So I think that's going to be incorporated into any percent at some point, just because people are it's going to be hard to improve on that 27-minute run. So doing that, there's also some more kind of work I'm doing on to make the credits warp work. You have to name your starter a 10 character name, and so every time it prints out his name, you're losing like 10 frames. Which is kind of slow. Loses like 7 or 8 seconds throughout the run, which is kind of interesting. So there's some ways that we could potentially avoid that. There's some ways where we could speed up the final battle of any percent, which is like a double battle, by basically losing the battle intentionally instead of winning. So those are things that are in development, but not being used in runs yet. But so the route is still developing, but if you're just interested in like the bare bones route, you don't have to do any of that. It's by no means mandatory, but it is cool that things like that were previously TAS only are actually starting to become RTA viable. And yeah, I think that's a good sign or it's a good example, I guess, of the future of Pokemon speedrunning, that it's still developing 20 years later for games like this.
Yeah. And I just hear all the time how messed up they all are, so good to know that getting worse and worse in a good way.
Yes, exactly. Things are getting easier in some ways. I mean, yeah, any percent is now a lot easier, but then going for a really like a world record in any percent is getting a lot harder. The glitchless route is a lot easier, or in terms of consistency, with that late brawly route. But I mean, getting a top 10 run or a top 5 run is a lot harder now. I mean, yeah, like I said, a couple years ago, my PB was a top 5 run, and now I've been bumped back to tied for 10th, which is pretty crazy how far that's been developed. yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the Pokemon side of things. Um, yeah, outside of that, it's always tricky to be like working on a new route and also like, do I do runs with the old route while I'm developing the new route? Because it's like, well, why don't I just focus all my energy on developing the new route? So that's always kind of a weird balance to strike. Um, but so while I've been working on the old routes, I've been like, well, let's just try out some new games while I'm routing things and doing that. So on the side, I've been learning Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, which has been really fun. Alwo is a very good runner of that, and he's the guy who went back and forth with me on any percent world records several times. So he's been kind of coaching me for that. That's been fun. Same with Minish Cap. That's a really cool game. In terms of, yeah, the speed run is actually pretty easy to pick up. I like it. So I did runs of that recently. Recently got top 30 in Minish Cap, which was fun. Um, and then I've also been doing a bunch of Drill Dozer, which have you ever heard of Drill Dozer? It's
I,
kind of a niche game.
I think so.
So it's made by Game Freak, so the same people that made Pokemon. It came out in like 2005, 2006, I think. It was a pretty late release for a Game Boy game. Here, I can actually show it. Stream. So it's got this like chunky piece at the top. This
Mhm.
is one of two games for the Game Boy Advance ever that had like a rumble included in the game.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because there wasn't rumble in the Game Boy Advance by default. So they put it in the cartridge. And so it's like it's about you're this girl who's like got to avenge her dad or whatever, and like it's a cute platformer. Um and so when you like drill with your kind of drill suit, it like vibrates the cart. Um and yeah, so and then like if something explodes, it vibrates. It's cool. I think the only other game that did that was like a Wario Land game or something for the Game Boy Advance. So it's cool. It's just that fact is unique, and then I played it a ton as a kid, so I have a lot of nostalgia for it. Which I mean, I feel like that's how a lot of people get into their speedrun games is through nostalgia.
Mhm.
But yeah, so we've been working on that. There's a really cool TAS of that game that was made several years ago, and I've been incorporating a lot of the strats from the TAS into RTA runs that weren't really done in RTA attempts. The world record holder Bear type has a really good run, a 206. I have a 210. I plan on improving that pretty soon, but been going through finding strats that were done in the TAS, not RTA, and then kind of finding RTA viable setups for that. So that's been cool. And then there's also some crazy glitches. Well, there's like one crazy glitch in Drill Dozer that can cause a lot of really funny visual effects. Unfortunately, it's been totally visual so far. I've been doing a bunch of glitch hunting with that, trying to see if you can use it for anything useful. Uh, but it seems pretty much just like a graphical glitch. But it'll be cool to see if that gets developed anymore. Um, it's always interesting to try out games that have like a small community like that. Not as many resources to learn from. You're kind of figuring things out for yourself. And then also, like, I mean, the world record holder, he was like, I think if more people ran this game, we'd be at a sub 2 already, which is pretty crazy to say. Like, he has a 206, and that's like a pretty good run.
Mm.
To say that we could be at a sub 2 is pretty interesting. And maybe we will get there. You never know. But that's kind of what I've been doing outside of Pokemon. But Pokemon's my bread and butter for the most part.
Well, it's good to have other things too,
Yeah, true.
because burnout
Yeah,
is easy.
burnout is easy. I definitely got some burnout of glitchless, which is what put me over to any percent. It's nice to have both, but it's also easy to get burned out of a game in general when you start you start working on it for too long and you're like, okay, I'm having dreams about this game. This is maybe not maybe not a good sign. But yeah, it's always nice to mix it up.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, with other games, other also, yeah, like I said at the very beginning of the podcast, like things that are less RNG heavy, more execution heavy. It's always just nice to like, okay, test your skill. Don't
Mm.
require a 20 resets to finish a run.
Yeah, that's my thing. I
Yeah.
hate RNG.
Yeah. 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 If you hate RNG, glitchless is probably not the category for you, but
If you
any
see me
percent is
running
actually pretty
Pokemon,
good.
save me. Something's very wrong.
it's 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 not him if he's running
It's
Pokemon.
not me.
It's an imposter. Yeah.
I can barely
Yeah.
run Mario 3.
uh, yeah. Mario, yeah. Mario runs are cool. I want to get into more of them. I've only done Mario Land 2 and TTYD, like two of the strangest Mario games to
I've
run.
done
But
Mario Land 2.
that's yeah, I did any percent because I wanted something really short, but
Oh,
um
okay. Yeah.
glitchless seems pretty cool too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did a 12-hour challenge for the glitchless category. It's fun.
Gotcha.
It's
Nice.
simple, but that just means like the execution's really hard though at a top level. But
Yeah.
it's pretty easy to just understand, which is nice. Pretty
We did
chill.
speaking of Mario, what'd you say, Mario 3?
Yeah, very
We did
RNG.
yeah, oh yeah. We went to ESA this summer. Yeah, yeah, we went to ESA back in July or whenever, June or July. And they did a pretty fun event at the end where it was like a giant Mario 2D Mario relay, and it was like each person signed up for a level. And so
Yes.
I did like um I did Mario Bros 2. I think I did 1-2. That was fun. Um yeah, it made me want to try out some more of the Mario games because there's a lot of cool stuff there.
hmm Yeah, I love relays like that. I've been in a few of the Mario 64. Each person gets a
Oh
star kind of
yeah.
deal.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Those are good.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's pretty much everything you've ran.
I think so. Um Yeah, I mentioned I did some Hollow Knight and some Celeste and even some Slime Rancher. That was like my identity crisis where I'm like,
Oh,
what the heck do I run? Um, those are
the
fun, just
indie
like
arc.
to yeah, it was when I was like it was like my sophomore or junior year of college maybe, and I wasn't really streaming because I was busy with other stuff, but I wanted to still do runs on the side, and so yeah, that was kind of my indie arc where I was just trying random games. Those are all fun to run. And yeah, I never submitted any of those because I was like, my times weren't super good or anything. But um, yeah. And then we've been doing a bunch of archipelagos recently. Have you tried any of those?
I have tried it a little bit.
Yeah, those are fun. Um, there's a lot of like, there aren't a ton of games. There's a decent amount of games that are like officially supported,
Mm-hmm.
but in the Discord, what's cool is like people are making their own, and so they'll be marked as like unofficial games that you can set up yourself if you want to try them. And so there's a bunch in there that are being
Mm.
developed and are playable, and so we've been trying those.
I'll have to look into
Terraria we
that
tried
because
recently.
there's like
Yeah,
the only 2D Mario that's official is World, and I have the least
yeah.
experience with that. Like Mario 3, I think would be a good because they 3 has a pretty good randomizer, and I think it would, and it's
Oh,
structured
interesting.
similarly to World in a way.
Yeah,
So that'd be cool. Mario 64 is
yeah,
pretty good too, though. So
yeah. So like they set up Paper Mario Thousand Year Door recently is like an unofficial supported one, and so
mm,
that's my girlfriend's favorite game. So we've been doing that together. They have Super Mario Land 2 now. Speaking of that,
mm.
that's kind of
Yeah,
fun.
again, similarly structured, so makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah. I don't know if they have Mario 3. They've got Mario Sunshine now.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if
Um,
Mario 3
yeah,
doesn't get some sort of support because Again, if
Yeah,
World has
that's a
it,
pretty
it's
big one.
they could find a
It's
way
got to
to
be in
take the
progress.
randomizer and make it work.
Yeah, true. Definitely. Um, yeah, and they've been adding like, oh yeah, in terms of like the unofficial games, there's like a bunch of new Pokemon games now, like Gen 4 and Gen 5.
Mm.
Um, Balatro. Balatro's an interesting one. I played so much Balatro when that came out. I never did speedruns of it or anything, but kind of makes for an interesting randomizer.
That is kind of the point of it, isn't
Yeah,
it? well,
yeah.
well, speaking since you brought up ESA, we haven't talked about marathon runs.
Oh yeah. Um, what was the most? You were at TwitchCon last year, right?
I was, yes.
I was there too.
Hmm.
Um, so I did a run of Sapphire any percent there before any of the Ace stuff had been discovered. So that was the old Tentacruel route with candy duplication. That was like an hour,
Hmm.
yeah, an hour
Why don't
50
I
or something.
remember this? What
Um,
day? What day was it?
oh, do you remember what day it was, Blue Jay? I don't remember. I think it was day 2.
Yeah, I was gonna say if it was day 2, I was like not at the GDQ place that day.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Yeah,
I want to say it was day 2, one of the earlier runs,
yeah.
but
Because
yeah.
I was gonna say I caught like a third of
Uh,
the event. I
y-
thought, but
yeah,
I was
yeah.
not there day 2.
It was on a Saturday, and I think
Okay,
the
yeah,
event
yeah, yeah.
started
That's day
Friday,
2.
so yeah, it was
Mm-hmm.
day 2.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
My
That
bad,
was a
but
cool event, though. Dang, you missed it. No, that's
no.
okay.
Oh well.
Uh,
Yeah. That's too much glitch. I had to commentate the next day for Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Like
oh,
you
that's
could only
right.
have so
Yeah,
much glitch, you know. I would have been
yeah,
overloaded.
that was cool. Oh, why I'm blanking on his username. Who ran the Sonic
Oh,
one?
Supersonic.
Supersonic. Yeah, yeah. He's cool. I talked to him a little bit while I was there.
Yep.
Uh,
Did we
yeah,
cross
that was a fun
paths at all?
marathon. Mm, I don't know.
It's funny.
I probably saw you at some point, like while I was, because the
Entirely
rest of the days I
possible.
was in the audience at some point. But
It's funny
yeah,
because that event's so small. I just assumed I met everyone,
yeah,
but I guess I don't
yeah,
know. Well, let me rephrase. TwitchCon massive, GDQX
yeah.
smaller,
Smaller. Yeah,
much
yeah.
smaller.
True.
Yeah, probably
Um,
the only time I'll close a
yeah,
GDQ event. That
yeah,
was pretty fun.
yeah. That was a fun event.
Yeah, I'd never go to TwitchCon any other way because free
That's I was just
ticket.
saying that
Yeah,
yesterday. Yeah,
free ticket.
exactly. Yeah. Um, yeah, I submitted again this year but didn't get in.
Yeah,
Um,
I didn't even
but
try. I ended up
yeah.
going to something else.
Oh yeah. Uh, yeah, it would be cool to come back and be like, "Hey, remember the run we did last time? Well, we've shaved an hour and a half off of it." So,
That would be
um,
pretty good.
same category,
Enticing.
very different run. Yeah. So yeah, maybe that'll happen again. At ESA, we raced Sapphire glitchless. Alwo and I raced glitchless. That was cool. Um, I got so unlucky on that run, but it was still fun.
Marathon luck.
Yeah, yeah, big time. I died like 3 times to one fight. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Like I missed. It relies a lot on a 95% accurate move. I missed that move 3 times in a row, I think, and
Nice.
died for it every time. That was crazy. Um, it was fun. And then with RNG manipulation, we were trying to come up with like extra incentives to add on, sort of like a couple days before the race. And what we did was like after you beat the game, you can get the Rayquaza as the legendary, like on the Sky Pillar or whatever it's called. And I made a RNG manipulation to make it shiny, but we didn't tell people.
Hmm.
So we made the incentive like Rayquaza race, and so we basically like beat the game and then did like another mini race where we would race to get the Rayquaza. Um, and then yeah, what we did was then had that RNG manipulation, which was frame perfect. So we were like, oh, what if we don't get it? Like, what if
Mm.
we spend like 5 tries and we miss it every time? But Alwo got it on his first attempt, which was super hype. And so then he was like, oh my gosh, it's shiny. And was like, we were like pretending like it was totally legit. So that was cool. And then after like a minute or something, I was like, so we RNG manipulated that. It wasn't actually 1 in 8,000 chance. Um, but that was fun. I liked that
What would have
idea.
been funnier is if you both got shinies at the same time.
Yeah, I really wish we both hitting the frame perfect first try is pretty unlikely, but it would
Yeah,
have been
fair.
so cool. Like, yeah, it would have been sick. Yeah. Should have practiced more for this. I should have spent days practicing for this one-off RNG manipulation that will never be used in another run.
Well,
Um,
at least it worked out a little bit.
yeah, it was still cool. I liked that.
That's funny. I forget just how
Yeah,
rare shinies are.
yeah. 1 in 8,192 in the
Mm-hmm.
Gen 3 games, and then I think that they doubled the odds of them in the newer games.
All right. Still not likely.
Still pretty rare. Yeah,
Yeah.
uh, yeah. Everyone's talking about Legends ZA now because that's the newest Pokemon game.
Yeah, I don't.
It's it's apparently pretty easy to find shinies in that game because from what I heard, um, if a shiny Pokemon spawns, and it's so different now, right? Because they're like showing up in the overworld, like you don't
Mm-hmm.
get like a quote unquote like wild encounter, like they're just there. And apparently, if a shiny Pokemon spawns in that game, it will never despawn. Like it's coded to never despawn. So
Well,
like
yeah.
it's so much easier to find them now. Yeah, pretty interesting. But
So is GDQX and the ESA the only marathons you've been to then?
I think those are the only in-person marathons I've been to.
Okay.
Um, I submitted to AGDQ for this January
Mm-hmm.
or January 26th. We'll see if anything gets in for that. I submitted Sapphire any percent and I submitted Drill Dozer. I
All
might have
right. All
submitted
right.
something else. I don't remember. Oh, I submitted Glitchless, Sapphire Glitchless as well.
Mm.
So got a few options. We'll see if any of those get in. Um, I think those are the only in-person ones I've been to, though. I've done some smaller online ones. We did a GDQ hotfix recently. I was on commentary for Sapphire any percent. That was fun. And then Speed Docs is like a YouTube channel
Yeah.
that runs stuff, and they've been doing a marathon every year for a while. So I've done a couple of those now. Um, yeah. Oh, and then there's another smaller one called Dog Pound.
Hmm.
Um,
I'm not familiar.
that Yeah, it's I forget what the actual marathon itself is called. I think that's just the name of the channel. Um,
Hmm.
oh yeah, it's called Dog Pound Expo, and so it's just like a weekend. I think it's November 7th and 8th, or yeah, 7th or 8th or 8th and 9th, something like that. I think I'm doing Sapphire any percent for that, so that'll be fun.
All right. Well, kind of asked everything I usually ask then. I mean,
Nice. All right.
have you think we covered everything about you? You would know better than I.
uh, I think so. I'm trying to think if there's like any important stuff that I missed. Um,
I was genuinely fascinated by the the history of the any percent.
yeah,
I love
that's like
stories
my
like
favorite
that.
thing to talk about. Yeah, there is just so much history there, and yeah, I love talking about it. So, um, yeah, I hope the viewers at home enjoy that ramble as well.
And I'll look
Um,
out for the video, and now I'll be able to watch it and be like, "Oh, I get it."
yeah, so yeah, feel free to browse my YouTube channel if you want some of the videos about it. I explained some of it in my PBs as well, but I'm sure PulseFX is a big content creator, Waffleman is a content creator. They'll be releasing videos that kind of dive into it more. I might do some as well in terms
Mhm.
of like the technical explanations. Um, yeah, I think that's everything.
Good deal. Well, I know you briefly mentioned some stuff, but just any near future, far future plans for you in whatever way?
Um, yeah, me and Alwo are like we're competitive with each other. We've got a little bit of a rivalry in some things. I mean, with Sapphire any percent, we definitely did, but um, with Minish Cap, my goal was to beat his time, which I finally did last week, so that was cool. Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, he's quite good at that game. I don't know if I'll ever beat his time, but I would like to improve my time. So those things are sort of on the list. Um, the the short term, as I really want to improve any percent, I would love to take back the record, try to get a better 27-minute with some of the new improvements that we've been working on. Um, Drill Dozer is also short term, probably gonna be on the list because yeah, we've made some improvements there. Um, but yeah, long term, I'll probably still be running Pokemon as usual. I finally got a cartridge of Emerald. I have a cartridge of Fire Red. So at some point, if I do get burnt out on Ruby Sapphire, even though I've been playing it for years now, um, probably always catch me playing Gen 3 Pokemon games. Maybe branch out to Gen 4, Gen 1, Gen 2, you know. I love the older ones cuz I just love the pixel art and the sprites and everything and it's just nostalgic for me. But that's sort of my long-term plan. I've got a whole list. I like to keep a list on my phone of just like games that I would like to try out runs for. Um cuz I do love the learning process. So, um yeah, I would say in general, you can probably find me playing Pokemon, but there's always a chance that some other game catches my eye for a week or two, and then that's what I do instead. Um,
Mhm.
yeah,
And then where can people find you?
yeah. Um, Twitch.tv/BluMagma7 is where I stream currently. And then I have a bunch of YouTube videos, PBs, and yeah, explanation videos about glitches and other stuff on youtube.com/BluMagma7. Um, I might be, I'm working on getting dual streaming set up for that as well. So um, that'll be a thing in the future. And then yeah, I don't use Twitter much anymore, but I'm on Blue Sky if you want to follow me there at bluemagma.bluesky.social. And oh, and then if you are curious about like the latest and greatest glitch stuff, um, there's still a lot of it being figured out, and so there's not like a great central location for it yet. But if you want kind of the newest stuff, feel free to join my Discord. It's linked in my it's linked on my Twitch. You can find it there. And yeah, there's a bunch of stuff about new glitches, fun stuff that you can do with it if you want to mess around with it casually. So that's a good place to find out. You can find out when I'm streaming, what I'm streaming, new glitches, new stuff like that. So yeah,
All right. Well, I guess that'll be all for today. So,
awesome. This was fun. Thanks for letting me
of
come
course,
on.
thanks for yapping for me.
No problem. I can talk about it all day. So it's fun. Yeah, I never get tired of it because yeah, like you said, there's a really cool history and story to it. I enjoy telling people about it. Yeah,
Well, that'll be all. So, yep, thanks everyone for watching. You know where to follow the show, follow the guest, follow me, I guess. Although if you're watching probably already are, so oh well. And yeah, I never know how to end these after 141 times. So Stay tuned for 142 next week. Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Woo!
Very exciting. All right. Well, I'll end it here. So, thanks again and bye.